Hi folks, welcome back again to Meaningful Money. I'm still on my beautiful country lane. It's nice and quiet, though people do keep walking past just behind the camera where there's a junction there and a road going past. The last video was something like 9 minutes, so I'm glad I cut that one short and made this one on its own right. What we talked about last time was term assurance, life assurance which only lasts for a set period of time. Now what we need to cover off is whole of life assurance. As I mentioned briefly last time, whole of life assurance, potentially every policy written in that way has the potential to pay out because everybody dies. Not every policy lasts its whole term. People surrender them or cancel them early if they're no longer needed or can't afford the premiums anymore. But potentially at least every whole of life policy will pay out, and that makes it expensive. Now, if something's too expensive, nobody will buy it. So the industry obviously had to come up with ways to make whole of life assurance palatably cheap. And one of the ways they do that is to take the premiums that you pay, or at least the bulk of them, and invest those premiums for profit. Profit, I should say, for the life assurance company and not necessarily for you, although that is also possible. So what you do is you decide on the amount of cover you need. So that might be £5,000 to cover funeral expenses, or possibly even £500,000 if you've got a big debt. Once you set the premium, obviously you apply for life assurance, you tell them how old you are, what gender you are, and how poorly or otherwise you are, and they will come back to you with a premium. And you will pay that premium either for life, in the event of what we call a guaranteed whole of life plan. The premium, once it's set, remains the level for the rest of your life. An alternative to guaranteed whole of life is an investment-backed whole of life policy. And what you've got there then, you've got some options as to what level your premiums are set at. Your premiums can be set at the lowest level. Rather confusingly, we call that maximum cover basis. And if you do that, without getting too technical here, policies are reviewed usually after 10 years and every 5 years thereafter. And if I was to take a whole of life policy out now, and my premium would be pretty low. But when that policy is reviewed in 10 years' time, they will take into account investment performance over that time, and also claims history and things like that. And my premium will increase significantly. If I set it low to make the premiums palatable now, at the first review on the 10th anniversary of the policy, my premiums will skyrocket 3, 4, 5 times what they are now. Alternative to that is what we call balance cover or standard cover, where the idea is that if the investment does reasonably well, say 5-6% a year, then the premium will stay the same. So I'm hedging my premium, I'm sort of locking it against something I don't know, which is future investment returns. So I will pay more now in the short term, but hopefully it'll stay roughly the same over the long term. What we're finding though is that that's not happening. People's premiums are still going up on review anniversaries. So whole of life is expensive, but it might be that that's the only option for you. If you are looking to cover funeral expenses, or there is a big debt with no obvious end point, or you want to cover off a potential inheritance tax liability, which is something we'll come back to later on. Whole of life then is expensive but very valuable cover. Now in the next video I'm going to talk about trusts, because what you don't want is, if you have a big life assurance policy or even a small one, what you don't want is that money added to your estate, because then that all makes your estate much bigger, and when they calculate your inheritance tax liability, it's only going to make the situation worse. So you get around that by placing life assurance policies in trusts, and I'll come to that on the next video. I think I've covered off everything for whole of life, but just one last thing to say is, how much cover you decide on depends on what it is you're trying to fix. Is it to pay off a debt on your death so that your dependents or family or relatives don't have to look after that debt, but they can pay it off quickly and forget about it? Let's say you have a house with a mortgage on it. If you pay the mortgage off, then your dependents can live in the house and no danger of them being kicked out by a mortgage company if the mortgage isn't being paid. or maybe it's just to provide us a sum of money. My children are 10 and 7. Maybe I want to provide a sum of money to make sure that they can go to university if they want to, or to set themselves up in a house, perhaps give them a house deposit if I'm not able to provide that myself because I'm no longer here. So decide what it is you're covering, and then decide which kind of insurance is best for you, term assurance or whole of life assurance. I guarantee you cost will be a big factor in that, but it depends how important this is to you. If something's important to you, you'll pay the premium no matter what it is. So this is an excellent opportunity to speak to a good advisor to find out which is best for you in your circumstances and your budget. Okay, we'll talk about trusts next time. Hope this has been useful. Leave any comments and I'll do my very best to answer them as quickly as possible if you've got any questions. I tend to do these off the cuff rather. There's no script here, so I often afterwards think, oh, I should have said that, I should have said this. So if that's the case, I'll put a comment on or something like that, and perhaps you can do the same. Cheers, and see you next time.